so that I don't forget. All right, Jody, 8th grade science, fantastic. So good morning, good morning. If you didn't hear me say already, feel free to type in the chat if you'd like, and just introduce yourself to the group. We've got a nice number here already. We've got 30 people. In just a minute, I'll kick us off and we'll get started.
Are they erasers?
That's going to be tough to get into. With
I'm going to do a quick mute all, you guys. We just had a little bit of background noise. So I did just hit mute all so that way, you know, private conversations can stay private, because sometimes I think people don't realize the microphones are on. That being said, I would really love for you to feel free to unmute throughout this hour and talk to me. There's nothing I like better than actually getting to hear other people's voices besides my own. I'm sure that you all, you know, feel my pain when I say that the last year and 3 or 4 months has been, I'm really tired of my own voice, right? We've been doing this virtual thing for a while, and I long to be back in a classroom with all of you, but I am super excited to be here with you this morning. So let me once again just introduce myself. My name is Avra Robinson, and I'm an instructor with EdTechTeacher, and we are excited to be here today. I'll go ahead and share my screen, and then guys, what I do is kind of share my screen, and then I pull it down a lot of times and just try to get some FaceTime with you and get people to share what they're thinking. So today, the title of this session is High Quality Digital Workspaces and HyperDocs with Google Workspace for Education. So we're going to look at ways that we can design some learning environments and some learning experiences for students in a way that hopefully they can start to take more ownership of their learning by doing the design ahead of time as the teacher and kind of putting in that work, you know, on the back end. We can provide opportunities for them to be able to work through some different activities at their own pace, possibly, maybe integrating some voice and choice in terms of how they take in information as well as how they demonstrate their understanding. So just a couple logistics. We're starting right now at 11 o'clock Eastern time. This session is being recorded, okay? So I know a lot of people signed up, some people weren't able to be here, and that's okay. Like I said, what I'll do is share some ideas. What I have for you is, you know, I have some initial kind of why we might want to design in this way, but then I have a lot of examples. And as I talk through the examples, I'm going to kind of show you how they work, and then you can ask questions if you've got them as we go. I want this to be as interactive and engaging for you as possible. I'm not a big fan of holding all questions to the end, so I will definitely look over at the chat from time to time, and I will pause every few minutes or so and just check in with you. And then that would be a great time to share your ideas. If something that I've said has resonated with you in some way and you want to kind of piggyback on it or share or ask a question, please do, because that's a lot of times how we learn. So my email address is here also. I will share this slide deck with you at the end. You can feel free to reach out to me if there's anything I can do to support you after our time together today. I'd be happy to do so, okay? So, what we're looking at, guys, is this idea of the last year of our lives has been, the world's been upside down. But what's happened is that a lot of districts have gotten their hands on a lot of technology, and we've been immersed in this world of having to make everything digital. And now what we need to do is take a step back, think about it, and go, okay, so what was the stuff that was really awesome that happened? And then what was the stuff that, oh, we just had to make it happen and we don't necessarily need to duplicate that? What can we do now with maybe our new technology, with our new skills, or with some things that we just dabbled in a little bit? What can we do to create environments for students in the classroom that can be awesome, okay? When I think about technology, I like to think about it as a way to, for example, clone the teacher. Make it so that you can maybe explain to kids how to do something in a short audio clip or in a video clip, and put it at a station, for example. So, station rotation or centers are something that elementary teachers have been doing for a long time, but now middle school and high school teachers have started doing it too, in that kind of blended learning environment. It can be a neat way to have kids working in groups, collaborating, and what you can do is utilize some of the technology tools that have become so ubiquitous, have become so available to us in order to be able to put supports in place for kids, letting them learn at their own pace. Okay. And so that's kind of what we're looking at doing. And so when we think about considerations for lesson design, we've been designing lessons. If you've been a teacher, you've been designing lessons as long as you've been teaching or more. But now we're looking at doing so with technology tools and strategies. So when we think about this, some ideas here: a consistent unified location. If you remember, and I'm sure you probably don't want to, but if you close your eyes and remember back to April of 2020, right? When we were all just like, oh my gosh, I wish I could be back in the school with my kids. They're struggling, I'm struggling. I wish I could be there to help them find what they need, help them do what they need to do, right? There were so many teachers that were just overwhelmed by their students' sense of overwhelm. So one of the things that we know worked well was putting everything in one place, whether that's one Google Classroom, whether that's one Google Site, whether that's one Google Doc or Google Slideshow. Getting everything into one spot makes it easier for kids to be able to navigate and for kids to be able to find what you need them to do, okay? Another thing I think about a lot, and I saw a lot of special ed folks and early educators, but this is, early educators meaning that you're teaching the littles, right? But this is also for middle school and high school. The fewer number of clicks, the better the navigation, the easier it is for everybody, right? I always think about, how can we streamline this process for students so that way it just is easier for them to get where they need to get and do what they need to do. So, when you think about doing this kind of stuff, one of the things you can do is design something or take something that someone else has already designed and change it up and make it your own, but then try to test drive it, try to put on a student hat and look at it through the eyes of your kids, your students. If you can, even get a colleague on board and say, hey, will you take a look at this thing I've designed, this Google slideshow? Will you tell me if it makes sense to you as an outsider, someone that didn't design it? Just doing that can sometimes be really helpful because it can be a way for you to get some good feedback. Whenever I do anything and I go in as a student, I try to get a sense of, what my kids might be thinking and feeling as they go through the environment, as they go through the process. And what that helps me do is then troubleshoot when they have trouble, so when they come to you and say, hey, this didn't work for me, or it wouldn't let me click, or whatever it is, right? So thinking about those kinds of things can be ways that you can maybe head off the trouble before it starts, okay? Additionally, technology has it's just become so easy to integrate audio and video now into what we're doing. So adding additional modalities. This is wonderful support for students of any age, but especially our early readers, pre-readers, our struggling readers, our English learners. Anytime that we can lend our voice as the teacher and explain something verbally versus just giving the instructions in writing. You wouldn't walk into your class, just hand out a worksheet with instructions and a set of math problems or a set of activities to do in your subject area without explaining it, right? Well, the same thing goes for digital environments. When we expect kids to work through a variety of activities, we want to add as many supports as possible. And I don't know about you, but I do really well when someone explains something to me. It's the difference between the written word and your voice. Think about times when you've emailed back and forth with a parent or an administrator or a colleague, and maybe you're just not seeing eye to eye. You're just not understanding each other's meaning. But then you pick up the phone and within 30 seconds, you've got it figured out, right? That's the difference. So whenever possible, creating a quick video, creating a quick audio clip, adding to it can be a really powerful way to insert supports for kids. So that, of course, we want to do embedded checks for understanding, right? So something like a Google form or a question in Google Classroom, just different ways that we can do some formative assessment to be able to figure out what our kids are thinking and feeling and how well they're grasping the information. So these are all ways that we're looking to kind of minimize barriers for kids, find ways that we can streamline this process, okay? So you know what, Terry, I will share the deck at the end. Absolutely. So I'll get that to you. And that way you've got all the links to all the examples, no problem at all. All right. You didn't miss a thing yet. So welcome for those of you that are just, have just joined me while I was talking. Let me just stop and say hi again. My name is Avra and I'm an instructor with EdTechTeacher. We are here talking about designing lessons and learning experiences utilizing Google tools. Okay. So the first thing I want to kind of impress upon you, and I think this is probably preaching to the choir, but the idea of students having more autonomy, students having, working toward independence and ownership. And we can do that in some ways by giving them some choice. So why is voice and choice? Why is it so important? And, one of the things I think we need to think about is that voice and choice and giving kids choices allows them to feel a sense of control, and control reduces anxiety. So in this time in our world where, we've got a lot of social unrest, we've had this global pandemic for a long time, and we've got kids that are feeling sense of anxiety. And whenever you can give them some control back, then you're lessening their anxiety. Okay. Think about anything in your life that you can't control, and it's going to be associated with a sense of anxiety or fear. Okay. So think about that. We know from having taught little guys, when I taught preschool, giving them, hey, you can have an apple or an orange for snack, or you can take a nap now, or you can take a nap in 5 minutes. Those kinds of things, you as the teacher are still in control of the situation, but you're allowing students to feel a little bit of control too. And that can be really powerful. So, thinking this through as well, it's also a neat way to be able to bring interest and focus in with kids. When you allow them to choose what they are focused on and what they're working on and how they're demonstrating their understanding, it's a way to kind of strengthen their self-regulation skills. And I do see a question from Nita about sources on this concept. So I do have some sources and I can add them to the slides, and I can do that afterwards. Absolutely. Kind of the different articles that I've read and all of that over the time to have gotten this information. But you guys, whenever you give kids a chance to pick something that they're interested in, or pick the way that they demonstrate their understanding, it's going to allow them to focus more because they're going to be excited and interested in it. And so what I think teachers need to remember is that you can have your must-dos, right? Your objectives, your standards, the stuff you've got to do and get done. But at the same time, look for opportunities to weave in voice and choice in everything that you do. So let me show you some examples of what I mean. To begin with, okay, got a couple of different examples here. One on the left side is a Google form. This Google form is a really cool kind of choose your path lesson. All right. And I'm going to show it to you now. It's an older kid concept. So if you are a younger kid teacher, please transform this in your mind in a way that makes sense for you. But let's take a look at this. All right. So this is on gerrymandering. And it says, hey, today we're going to look at this idea of, redistricting and blah, 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 blah. And, here's what we're going to do. So it's a little bit of an introduction. And when the student goes on, okay, the first thing that they get is just a quick question, like, what do you know about it? But then the thing I really want you to focus on is this idea. How would you like to learn about gerrymandering for this lesson? And there are 3 different options that this teacher has given to his students, okay? One is, I'd like to watch a video. Another is, I'd like to read an article. Or another is, I'd like to listen to a podcast. So let me just stop and ask all of you for just a second. If you could choose any way to take in new information, would you rather watch a video, listen to a podcast, or read an article? Go ahead, just throw it in the chat. I'd love to know. Video, video, video. Video, read an article. Okay, read. It's going fast. I have to get my mouse up there so I can scroll back a little bit here. All right, let's see. We've got lots of videos, got to read an article, read. article, podcast, video, article, read. So it's a toss up, right? Yeah, read an article, Julia says, but I'm an ELA teacher. Well, sure, absolutely. So for me, I love to listen. I listen to Audible books all the time, but my favorite way, if I'm taking in new information, like nonfiction, I like to hear it at the same time as read it. That's just how I learn best. And I think what we're seeing here is that everybody's different, right? And our kids are the same way. So how cool is this? Check it out. What we can do is say, all right, I'd like to watch a video. So for those of you that like to watch a video, you could have clicked on this and we could hit next. And then this Google form, it's called a branching form, okay? So what it did is it took me to a different section of the form based on my answer for that question. So, hey, there's a video, all right? So that's one option. Let me just go back and show you what happens if we click on the others. Here's the article. If we hit next, then it just takes us right down here and it says, all right, great. So then you can go and click on that article. Or, and I'm sure you can predict this is gonna take us to that podcast. Okay, so that again, once again, we've got a link here to the podcast. And one other option would be to say, hey, and to kids, you can do more than one of these if you'd like, because you're going to get that same information. And then at the end of each of these guys, what the teacher did is built out some checks for understanding. After students either watched the video, listened to the podcast, read the article, then he had them come in and answer some questions. So that way he was able to check for their understanding. So yeah, Jill, I can absolutely show you how to create this type of form. That's a great question. So basically, and I have a video on it, so I'll do just a quick demo, okay? I have a video on how to start to scratch, starting from scratch on Google Forms that I can include into these slides, and I'll do that later. I've also got one on just how to do these branching forms. But the way that you do it basically is that you set up different sections of the form. So this is, I obviously just in this hour, we don't have time to look at, completely how to do forms, but assuming a little bit of basic knowledge, what you do is you go down to this floating toolbar here on the side of the form and you choose add a new section. Okay. And when you do that, so we'll just call this like section 2. Okay. Then, and I'll just do one more here and we'll call it section 3. And so I'm just very quickly kind of showing you how to do this with the idea that then you can follow up and watch the video. But what you do, guys, is that after you've created a couple of sections and you can put whatever you'd like to have be in those different sections, then on your forms question, you go down to the bottom right and there's a 3-dot menu. And there's an option here that says go to section based on answer. Okay, so if I click on that, then, well, let's just say this is a right answer, this is a right answer, and this is a wrong answer. Okay, so let's just say that we've had kids watch a video and then they answer a question and they get it right. Well, then maybe they get to move on to a different section or something like that. It doesn't like that I have 2 rights, so we'll just do a right and a wrong. So then let's say that if they answer this, what you do is you come over here, continue to new section, and you say, hey, I want them to go to section 2 then if they answer this way. Or if they answer this way, I want them to go to section 3. Okay, so it's the same kind of idea. Like if you were to say you're working at a high school and you've got a form and you need the freshmen to fill out one part of it, the sophomores to do something else, they might choose like, hey, I'm a 9th grader, and that's going to take them to their section of the form. Okay, so I know that was really quick, but again, I'll put in those support materials for you so that way you can see it explained a little bit more slowly and more deliberately. So yeah, and you're welcome, no problem. It's called branching forms. So if you can just go on to YouTube too and find a video on it, but I've got a couple that I'll put in there for you as well. So, thinking about this is just a way to be able to offer different learning paths to students or multiple learning paths to students, right? Giving them the chance to figure out who they are as learners. This kind of thing might help them figure out who they are and how they learn best. You guys, I read all through high school and I was a voracious reader and I thought college was going to be a breeze. When I got there and it was all those heavy gen eds of like the first year of teacher training, right? I was lost in all that reading and I wasn't doing well and I couldn't figure out why. So it wasn't until I was 18 that I figured out I need to hear it and see it Man, if I'd figured that out when I was like 10 or 11, how great would that have been, right? So that's like an older kid example in the Google form. You can also do the same kind of thing built into a Google slide, okay? So this slide might be the same kind of thing that you would give to kids. What you could have, I'll put it up in present mode so you can see it a little bit better, is something like this. Like, hey, today we're going to learn about grassland habitats. And you guys, let me just show you a couple of different things I've got built in. Okay, so teachers of younger kids, teachers of English learners, my special ed folks out there, or just anyone who wants to provide that additional support for students, think about reading anything that's on your slide.
Today, we are going to learn about grassland habitats. During the lesson, you will be able to choose how you learn. Think about how you like to learn new things.
Okay, so the idea is that I'm reading just this paragraph at the top. Because if you look at this slide, while it's going to provide a lot of supports, it could also be a lot of text, a lot of information for kids to take in, and it might be too much. But what I want you to focus on right now is just the same kind of idea that was in that Google form, but here in a slide. So what we've told the kids is you can either read and look at pictures. Okay, so my ELA folks out there who enjoy reading that article and maybe you want to look at the pictures, you guys would click here. All right, and that's going to take you to an article. Now, once again, this is a lower kid example. So, if you're a high school or middle school teacher, transform this in your mind to what works for you. But this is a National Geographic Kids article about grassland habitats. That's one option for their learning, right? Then here is another one. Engage with a video. So maybe you found an awesome video on YouTube. Maybe you use something like this View Pure, right? That is going to make it so that it's not in YouTube in case your school blocks YouTube. However you get videos to your students, you would then push out this video. So maybe some kids like to learn from the video instead, just like a bunch of you did, right? So that's a possibility as well. Or maybe they want to hear it explained by you. So you as the teacher, open up Screencastify as an example. So Screencastify is a video, screen recorder, but it's also just a front-facing camera. And you do a short mini lesson where you explain. Okay, now I'm not going to play this because it's just an example, but this could be you, right? This could be you at your board. This could be you reading something to them. This could be you just explaining the concepts. And maybe there's a couple of them. Maybe if you're using Screencastify to create videos for students, you know that they shouldn't be long. They should be definitely under 5 minutes and shorter if possible, and chunked into smaller bite-sized pieces for kids to learn and understand, right? So what you can do is think about how you want kids to get the information and see if you can provide for them as many opportunities as possible to be able to learn in different ways. One other thing I've done with this is I've gone to like this National Geographic page. I've turned on Screencastify and I've read it just out loud as a way of providing a support so that way students could hear me reading while they read what's on the page as well. So, what we're doing is just trying to offer different modalities and different ways for kids to take in information, all right? Just a quick note about video. Down here at the bottom, one thing you need to think about, guys, is as we are looking at utilizing instructional videos or creating instructional videos for students, what we have to make sure to do is know that they know how to learn from that video, okay? A lot of times, and this is hopefully you learning from my mistake, a lot of times students will just see a video as something passive because they've used videos mainly for entertainment. So when I first learned to create a screencast back when I was in my school district still, so maybe 2013 or so, I thought it was going to be so cool because I made all these different screencasts and I thought kids could be watching different ones at different times. And I thought that would free me up as the educator to walk through the room and add some, work with kids one-on-one, add supports here and there. And what happened was this: they hit play and they sat back and they passively watched the video. And when it was time to do the activity that was associated with the learning of the video, their hands shot straight up and they didn't know what to do, okay? Because I had missed a huge step as an educator. I missed the step of teaching them how to learn from a video. So to begin with, I've ditched the word watch when it comes to videos, okay? I tell them we're going to interact with a video. I tell them we're going to learn from a video or engage with a video, because watch means Netflix. Watch means YouTube. Let's just sit back passively and just watch something. But that's not what we want them to do. We want them to be thinking. We want them to be pausing along the way and rewinding to hear it again. If you're sitting here right now thinking, oh my gosh, that lady talks so fast, it's okay, because you get to go back if you want. We're recording this. You can listen again if you want to. That's the magic of recording something in video or audio, okay? So I was working with a group of teachers, I don't know, about 4 months ago, and there was an awesome 5th grade teacher, and he said, I teach my kids that they have superpowers and that they can stop time when they're watching a video, and they can rewind time or fast forward. And so he put it in that way. And I thought that was such a cool thing. We have to teach them to interact and really learn from a video. So think about that as we're kind of looking at all these possibilities, okay? So this is just another example of ways that we could set up different learning paths for students, okay? Now, conversely, that's the idea of them taking in new information. But what about when we want them to then demonstrate their understanding? We can do the same kind of thing. So what we can do is we can create something where they're going to demonstrate their understanding in a variety of ways. So you guys, this is from a workshop that I've done. So it's got a couple of different topics, but what you would have is your topic right here, right? So, hey, maybe you're a math teacher, solve for X, or maybe you're a social studies, you're working on social studies, and it's like, hey, let's talk about 3 causes of the Civil War, or what's your favorite book and why, or what do you think is going to happen next in the story, whatever it is. And can we provide 3 or 4 or more different ways that students could demonstrate their understanding, right? So one might be, hey, go to Flipgrid, create a short video, and tell me what you know, or tell me what you're thinking, or reflect on your process, or whatever it is. Or, hey, could you go to Google Slides, show what you know in this way. So for example, could you take a picture of something you've done on paper, right? Maybe kids have written something on paper and this is their way of chronicling their understanding, right? And then maybe over here, you have them just do some text, right? That extended response to explain that which they're showing here in the picture. One thing I don't have on here, and this is a perfect time to show you how to do it, is the audio recording. So you guys, I have a slide later that I'll show you on how to get this program, but there's a program called Moat. If you've been taking a couple of these sessions with my colleague Greg, you probably already have heard of Moat because it's a fantastic program. But for those of you that are new to it, it's a Google Chrome extension that integrates audio into Google Slides. So if I click on this, then I can say, I knew that I needed to get X by itself. So the first thing I did was subtract 5 from each side. And then that left me with 3x equals 14. So I divided each side by 3 and ended up with X equals 3. Okay, so Moat is one of those programs that's awesome and free-ish, right? It gives us 30 seconds of audio recording for free. And then after that, they want you to pay for it. But that's okay. I talked really fast just now, so I got mine done. But you could have kids create 3 moats on one page where they explain the different steps slowly. First, I did this. Second, I did this. And all you have to do, guys, is hit insert, and it's going to put the little audio recording, button right here on your slide. And what's so fantastic about this is that it saves it in your Google Drive. So that's the back end of it. It's putting that recording in a folder called Moat Recordings in your Google Drive, but without you even having to do anything, it gives you this, all right? So same idea here. If we're doing causes of the Civil War, we could do 3 different recordings, or we could use something like Screencastify to, record front facing and letting kids explain with their voice. Do any of you have students that you know, let me just stop my screen share for a second and ask you, does anyone have a student or more that you know knows the answers and is so verbal and would just talk your ear off and just understands things? Comprehension is high, but as soon as you put a pencil in his or her hand or a keyboard under his or her fingers, then all of a sudden you get very limited sentence structure, very short, basic vocabulary. Does anybody want to type in the chat or talk out loud? Anybody experience these guys? I live with one. Okay, my son Cameron is going to be a 5th grader, and he's been talking since he was 18 months. But I'll tell you what, he's got barriers to reading and writing. And if you want to know what Cameron understands, you have to ask him to talk. Now, I'm not saying that we don't want to teach him to write sentences. We don't want him to, learn to be able to write essays. We do. But what are we assessing, right? Are we assessing his writing ability, or are we assessing what he knows about the Civil War? Okay, so that's just kind of something to think about. So let me just stop for a second and just see if anybody wants to unmute and share something that has resonated with you so far, or that you have a question about, just to kind of give you guys a chance to process for a second. Feel free to type in the chat or to unmute and talk. You know, it's weird, right? You don't always want to talk out loud in front of other people. Thanks, Anita, for typing. Lots of tools to try. Yeah, so this is a lot of ideas. Knowing that you're going to get the slides, though, I think will be really helpful to you, because I've got some slides built in at the end about the skills, what you'll need to know how to do this stuff, as well as more ideas coming your way. So let's go back in and keep going. And thank you for the chats, liking the choice options, getting ideas. Love that idea. The focus of what are we really assessing, and using that to offer different types of assessment. Yeah, great. I like the idea of providing multiple means of engagement. Yeah, my stuff, Jean, is absolutely based from UDL, absolutely. And then Sue says, I've always tried to give students choice, but you're giving some good examples. Great. So yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and just close out of some of my tabs here, because I tend to get a little tabalicious and then my computer starts running hot. So let me keep going. So you know what? I've just got in here some different choice boards, and I won't click on all of them. You guys can take them and absolutely, make copies and things like that if you want to. But we know that choice boards are tried and true. They've been around for a long time, and now they're digital. And so it's a way to be able to offer kids choices in terms of how they show what they know, or different things to get them engaged and get them excited about. So thinking about going back to the idea of choice providing control, choice reducing anxiety, choice increasing focus and interest, right? So math, art. Then let's take a look at this, okay? This is an activity board. This may not be a choice board per se, but this instead might be a set of activities that's going to take place over several days, possibly, okay? So it's putting everything in one place. Now, I'm sure that a lot of you use Google Classroom. You could do all of this in a topic in Google Classroom as well. The thing with Google Classroom that's so frustrating to me is that I wish that there were subtopics inside the topics, so that way we could have one topic that was chapter 1, but then there could be the first section of chapter 1, the second section. Well, by doing something like this, you're able to organize and put a bunch of activities in one place. So let's just kind of take a look at this, okay? And I will, Anita, yes, I'll go back to the art one in just a second for you. So this is just like maybe a middle school choice board or activity board of sorts, okay? And what each of these is something for the kids to do. So here, this is an embedded video, right? It's a YouTube video. They can hit play, they can go in and they can take a look at this. And I'll show you more about that in a little bit, okay? This is a Google Earth activity. So maybe then we're gonna click on this. It's gonna take them to Google Earth. It's gonna take them down to, I think this is going down to the Rosa Parks Museum, okay? So, different options for them. And what you're doing is creating what's called kind of a HyperDoc. It's a document that's got a bunch of links to get them engaged and get them exploring, but with your guidance, okay? So taking a look at that. And then, you know, again, being able to click on the examples like the National Geographic Kids or another article, but then building in those checks for understanding at the bottom, right? So this maybe was our consumption. These were all of the different things that we're going to explore to take in some new information. And again, this could be a video of you explaining. It could be a video that you find that a colleague has done, or that a really awesome one you find on YouTube or something like that. But then, hey, what can we do to make sure that they're understanding? So we could create, for example, a question in Google Classroom. And on the board itself, they click right here and it opens it right up to whatever the assignment is in Google Classroom or whatever the question is in Google Classroom, and they can go right in and do their work then, right? So the idea is kind of streamlining it for them. You know, this could be a link to a Google form that's going to just do a quick check for understanding, you know, even just the basic stuff, the basic recall kind of questions. Or this could be more open-ended. You know, it doesn't have to be the basic multiple choice. You could be saying something like this, you know, this question: do you feel that you could be an activist? Why or why not? The same kinds of questions could be asked on a Padlet wall or on a Flipgrid, you know? So let me just take a look at the chat real quick. Tina said the learning consideration video centers for students is a great way to leverage what teachers have gone through and built in the last year in remote learning. Yep, awesome springboard for continuing from, rather than just leaving it. Yeah, you know, I completely agree. And thanks, Gail, for chatting. You know, I think that's one of the things I'm worried about, is that we're all going to have this feeling like, oh my gosh, that terrible year. Let's just put everything in the cupboard and just try to move on, right? There are definitely some things that we can pull out of it and go, hey, this is cool. Gail, can you tell me that you can still can hear me? Okay. I just got a weird message. Great. Okay, thank you. Got a weird message on my computer and I'm not sure why. Sorry about that, guys. All right. So this is just another idea, right? And so what you can do is be building in all of these different checks for understanding, and get your formative assessment opportunities built in, as well as giving them the information that they need. Okay. So I'm going to keep going. You guys, what we're going to look at now are a variety of different things. Some people call them HyperDocs. Basically, the idea is building out a series of activities, allowing for collaboration in some cases. Sometimes it's working independently, but it's usually a multi-day or sometimes even a week-long or more activity. So like this, a novel study here, okay? So again, you know, Bud Not Buddies, not a primary book, but an elementary book. If you teach something else up at the upper grades, you know, transform this in your mind to what makes sense for you. But take a look at all of these different activities that kids might do, right? So they might be, you know, taking a look and analyzing the book jacket. They might be doing stuff like taking a look at vocabulary and doing some word work. You could build all of this in ahead of time. And then you can even offer choice in terms of path and pace. So maybe, you know, maybe it doesn't matter to you what they do on what day, or maybe it does, and then you kind of guide them here, but you say, hey, these are the things we need to get done on these different days. And as long as you have it all done by Friday, you're good to go, right? So, you know, by being able to utilize slides as an environment that allows us to bring in images, text, video, audio, you know, and then even providing text boxes where they can come in and they can do some typing, right? And they can respond with, you know, Mote if they wanted to. They could respond with Screencastify, or I'll show you another Google Chrome extension a little bit later called Record to Slides. Record to Slides basically allows for a video to be created right within Google Slides, okay? So lots of possibilities in terms of how you design it. And I think you're gonna look at these and go, that would take forever. But the cool thing is that you can take these and transform them and make them into something that makes sense for you, okay? So there's a website I'll show you in just a minute called hyperdocs.co, and it's got just hundreds of different examples. And then the ones that I'm sharing in here too have been shared with permission, so that way you can take them and build out, what makes sense for your students. Okay, so let's keep kind of powering through. Here's a science notebook. All right, so for those of you that are doing science stuff, think about kids being able to take a picture or a quick video of something that they're doing in a science class. I remember taking notes and doing all of that on paper because, I went to high school in the 80s, so 80s, early 90s. So, but think about what we can do now with the possibility of multimedia. It's pretty incredible. So let's just, let me just show you what else is in here. Okay, we've got music, we've got PE, but let me just skip to this right here. Okay, so you guys, this website here is called HyperDocs, and this will give you just oodles and oodles of samples. I'll throw this right into the chat right now for you, and then of course we'll give you the slides. But you'll see there are samples for every subject. All right, so you can come in here, and when you click on these, what's amazing, all right, let's just go to the math one. What's amazing is that it opens up a Google Drive folder, and there are documents as well as slideshows, and there are just tons and tons of them. So what you can do is say, hey, math choice PD, awesome, math review game board, click on it, take a look, and then change it up and make it however you want it to be. Okay, so that way, there's a lot of work that was put into this, but if you just take it and change it some, it won't be as much work for you. Okay, so let me just kind of go back to this idea for a sec. There's also a really cool function in Google Docs called checklists. All right, so think about this for a second. What if you had a series of activities in your Google Classroom, but they were all in different topics? Okay, maybe you use topics in a different way. Some teachers use topics in Google Classroom and they do it like today, or they do today's date, right? July 21st or something, whatever today is, right? And that's great. But some teachers, like especially elementary folks, might have an ELA section or topic, a math section, but then, hey, we've got a list of what we need to do for the day. So then what we could do is create a checklist in Google Docs. And what's really cool is that you can push this checklist out using Google Classroom to give each kid a copy. And when they're done, they can actually click in the little boxes. And if anybody uses Google Keep, this is just like Google Keep now, where you've got a checklist and you can actually check off stuff. So giving kids some organizational schemas, some ways of being able to organize that which they've done or which they still need to do. One thing I just want to mention, and I have this in the slides in terms of how to do it, but every activity that you create or every assignment that you create in Google Classroom is going to have a link to it. Okay, so let's say that we want to link to this please solve activity right here. Well, what you do is you click on this 3-dot menu right here. All right, and you come on down to where it says copy link. So if I copy this link right now it's in my clipboard, and I can go back to my to-do list, and I could highlight some words here and use this little link button up here at the top of Google Docs and paste in that link that came from Google Classroom. All right, so then if we hit apply, now if I'm a student in this class and I go, okay, well, where's my reading assignment? I can click on it and it's going to take me right to whatever this activity or assignment is that we linked. Okay, so it's a way to be able to take that which you build into Google Classroom, but then put it into an environment like this, or an environment like the one we were looking at earlier, like this. Okay, that's how you link to those different things in there. So let me just stop for a second and just see if anybody's got questions about what I'm showing or a thought to share. Feel free to type in the chat or ask a question. Art slide, yes, I'll go back to your art slide, absolutely. And I'll put it up, present mode. How do they access the to-do list? George, great question. So if you use Google Classroom, what I would do is create a new assignment. Okay, I would create the checklist first. And then I would create a new assignment and I would make a copy for each student. So I would do a new assignment, I would go to Google Drive, pull up that checklist, and then push a copy out to each student, okay? If you don't use Google Classroom, there's a different way to do it, but it looks like you do, so that's great. Tina, I'd like to use HyperDocs to collect all the videos that teachers created during remote training. Yeah, isn't that the truth? Rather than just throwing it into a Google Drive folder. Yeah, that's a fantastic way to do it. So by using slides, you can create HyperDocs in slides, you could create them in docs, you could create it in a Google Drawing, you can also create a HyperDoc in a Google Site. So a Google Site might be a really great way to create a repository of videos, because I think when teachers, once they've created videos, having them all in one place and getting it organized is really powerful. And also, teachers, as you're thinking about creating videos for students, if you start to feel a sense of overwhelm because there's so much to create, you might think about those students in your class that get done first. The ones that you're like, oh, did you really do? Oh, yeah, you really did do it. Okay, what am I going to have you do for the rest of the period, right? Could you say to that student, hey, you did such a great job on explaining these, causes that led up to the Civil War. How about you take your Chromebook and sit out right outside the door, or whatever is not going to get you in trouble as a teacher, right? And, go sit in this area of the classroom where it's quiet and make a video for next year's kids. You did such a great job. I'd love for them to hear you explain it, because we know that our students explain things in a completely different dialect than we do. Do you ever have that experience where you've asked a kid to go and catch somebody up? Hey, so-and-so was missing yesterday. Could you catch her up on what she missed? To listen to them explain what you explained the day before, they explain it in a whole new way, in a way that makes sense to kids, right? So it can be a really cool thing. It's a neat and powerful feeling for a student to have too, to feel like they're a partner in that learning and teaching process. So that can be really cool too. All right, Sue says, when you used HyperDocs, do you then have to go back and read through each HyperDoc to see the students' work? Yes and no. So what you could do instead when you create like this HyperDoc, so let's just even look at this Bud Not Buddy one, okay? You could do that, but I can hear like your thoughts there, like that's a lot, right? To be in Google Classroom, to be going in and then having to look at each one of these, right? So you could do this a couple different ways. You could do it this way, or you could create an assignment in Google Classroom where instead what you do is ask these questions in there, and then it just comes over to that. So let's just take a look real quick and do this kind of a number. Let me just do a quick copy and paste. This could be really ugly, but that's okay because we're just doing it for fun. So I'm going to do a create an assignment and maybe just do a quick questions like this, or maybe even better, create a question, right? And say, answer these questions or something like that. Then what you can do, let me just hit ask real quick to create that activity. And then what we could do here is copy the link. And then in here, maybe they rough draft it out right here, or they start thinking about it here, or maybe this is where they sit with their partner and they brainstorm the answers or something like that. But then maybe you highlight this and you link right to that Google Classroom activity. Okay, so you might do a number like that, where then, you're able to then, it takes right into Google Classroom, and then your classroom has got all your grading, all that stuff to do. So let me know, Sue, if that makes sense to you. But and then Anita, you said feedback on student responses. So, in classroom, you can give feedback to students, right? You can, when you go in and you grade something that they've done, you've got the option to be able to go in and give them, I'm just looking to see if I've got an example to show you off the top of my head. I don't, but you can go in and you can give them feedback in Google Classroom. You can also give them feedback, inside your HyperDoc if you'd like to. If you make a copy for each student and you do utilize it in that way, you could do that. You can also do that with Mote. So what you could do is, come in here and let's say that a student had written something, we could go over and we can add a comment, and I can type something here, or I can use Mote in a comment. And I could say, hey, listen, Anita, I can tell that you really grasped this information. You did a great job. I'm really excited. What I want you to think about next is, and that kind of a thing. So you could give some feedback utilizing Mote. You can do it. You can use Mote in the comments in Google Slides. You can do it inside of Google Docs as well. So we could highlight something in a Google Doc and you'll see that Mote is available there. And then Mote is also available in the private comments in Google Classroom as well. So, so lots of possibilities in terms of giving feedback. And I think, again, utilizing your voice literally during that feedback can be a really powerful way to truly give kids feedback that will help them learn and grow, right? So great, good. So let's take a look at maybe some options for collaboration, all right? So Google Slides is fantastic too, because we know we can have more than one kid in a Google slideshow. So what if we did something like this, all right? What if kids were taking notes together, all right? And maybe you don't do your whole class, because that, if anyone's ever truly done 20 or 30 kids in one slide deck at one time, hot mess of crazy. Can be really fun, but can also be really messy, just like all collaboration, right? Collaboration's awesome, powerful, but it can be messy. That's just the way it goes. But think about this, all right? Let's say that I've got, a group of 4 kids and they're all working, okay? And they're taking notes. Maybe you've given them a task, or maybe they're answering different questions. Maybe they're, watching a video in class together and then they're taking notes in here. It can be really neat to put kids together in the same space, because, when you're typing your notes on something you just watched in a video, somebody else isn't typing at that time and they're catching what's happening in the video. So it's a neat collaborative way to make sure that everybody kind of gets everything and they can look at each other's stuff. But then think about this. What if then, when I'm done with my task 1, I take this little box here and I slide it down to right here, all right? And then when I'm done with 2, I come and I do this. Now let me show you something. As the teacher, here's what I would do. I would go follow my mouse down to the bottom left, okay? I'm in what's called film strip view right now. This is just the typical view for slides. But if you go over one, there's something called grid view. And you guys, it's right here, and I clicked on it. And when I do that, then I get a grid view of all the different slides. So if I've got 4, 5, 6 kids working, okay, and just down here too, you can make it bigger and smaller. So I could be looking and I could go, okay, student 1, Anita's done with task 1 and task 2. And then maybe someone over here has done this. Look at what it says. Help, fill this bucket red if you need help. So let's say then that Sue says, I don't know what to do. I don't know. I'm so confused. Then if I'm the teacher and I'm looking at it like this, I go, oh, all right, she needs help. And I can walk over and go help her. Okay. So it's a way to be able to allow students some options for collaboration, but then also give you as the teacher some visual cues to their progress and allow them to be able to work collaboratively and independently, but then, let you be able to support them if they need it. So that's one template that you could use if you wanted to. There's another one, and this one, that one was created by my colleague Greg, but there's another one, and this was created by a lady who just has so many, and I'm going to give you her website so that you can get there. But this is a collaborative plot diagram. Okay, so think about this. If you're an ELA teacher, you're going to love it probably. If you're not, think about transforming it into something else that makes sense. But think about this as being group work. Okay, so you've got kids maybe sitting together, once all the COVID restrictions are lifted, right? And kids can sit together in groups again. And you've got team member 1, team member 2, team member 3. And so anything that's this mint green color, team member 1 is in charge of. Anything that's this pink color, team member 2 is in charge of. So what we're doing here is we're giving some visual cues to the kids by saying, hey, if you're number 3, you put your name in this box. All right, I'm Avra and I'm in charge of anything yellow. All right. So this is, again, a neat way for there to be group work, and you could have kids working together. So team 1 is going to do this slide, and then team 2 is going to have, or group 2, whatever you want to call it, going to have these same things, but then, just a different group of kids. So, you guys could take these and transform them into anything that makes sense for you. Another one I really, really love is this think, pair synthesize. So, you know, we do think pair share a lot, but take a look at this. And I'm going to go ahead and put it up in present mode so you can see this. So let's say my boss Gail is in here, right? So let's say that Gail and I are working together and we have, you know, read a novel together, and there's an issue in there that we're supposed to talk about. That's what the teachers told us to do. So I write my thoughts over here and Gail writes her thoughts over here, okay? And then we're either sitting together, or we can even do this asynchronously if we wanted. I go and I read Gail's ideas and she reads mine. And then maybe we talk. Okay, and we have a conversation about it. And then I've got some new ideas now that Gail shared hers. So I'm going to take my ideas, and then I'm going to take what she said, and here are my new thoughts after our discussion. And Gail does the same thing, and she writes her new thoughts after our discussion. And then ultimately, we need to work together to bring all of our ideas together and synthesize our ideas, right? So just a kind of a different take on the think, pair, share, but a way that you could kind of design this where, you know, gives kids an opportunity to write out what they're thinking and then share their ideas with one another. And there's nothing that says that you couldn't do this with a video or an audio as well, right? So you guys, what I want you to know is a lot of these were created by this Esther Park is her name, and she's got a lot of really cool ideas. So what you can do is come to this slide, and I'll build it into my slides too, and you can get to her website, and she's got a ton of free templates just like that HyperDocs one, where you can go in and take a look at what's there, and that way then you can just change it up to be whatever's going to make sense in your environment. So and that's yeah, good question, George. That one would be shared with just 2 kids. So again, the logistics of that would be take it into Google Classroom, okay? So we would do a number like this. Let's take a look. What you would do is just select, and I don't know if I have any people in here. I only have 1 student in here, so this is a bad example, or a bad way of showing it. But what you can do is for each activity, you come over here and you choose which kids get assigned, right? So if you've got a class of 20 kids, you're going to create maybe 10 different assignments because you've got 10 groups of kids. That'd be one way of doing it, okay? You might have a larger group too that would work for as well. So kind of up to you. So you guys, what I have here is just a quick slide that shows you, you know, reminds you of where that grid view is, because I think that could be a really great kind of at a glance way of taking a look at it and being able to see how kids are doing, okay? Another idea is to get kids working together on a bigger project. So this was a really cool thing that a teacher did. This was a national park timeline, okay? The main slide is kind of a roadmap to all of these different ones, and then each kid got a different national park, okay? And they all work together. Now, I wouldn't necessarily put them all in at the same time. This might be a neat thing where they're working at different times on this, just for the logistics of Google Slides. But what's cool is, let's just take a look at what this might look like. So if we were up in present mode, you know, and we come down and we click on the Grand Canyon, it takes us to our Grand Canyon. So once again, this is allowing kids the opportunity to collaborate and work together. Maybe each slide's allowed to look however, but maybe you say, hey, we at least need 2 sentences, okay? We need a picture, and I want an audio recording of you explaining the picture or something like that. So again, you as the teacher give those must-dos, and then you let them, you know, pick and choose the design and allow them to have some voice and choice around, you know, what it looks like, okay? So guys, I know we're almost out of time. We've got about 3 minutes left. And so what I want to do is just kind of show you what else is in these slides. There's a set of just kind of like the skills that we need thinking about this. All right. So I showed this earlier. This is how you link from Google Classroom to a slideshow or to a document. All right. This is also something called publishing to the web. All right. And what publishing to the web does is it does this. Instead of it being here in slides, if you noticed when I clicked on this one, it went full screen, okay? This is a Google slideshow that is published to the web. What this does is it puts it full screen, which is really nice because we know that Chromebook screens a lot of times are small, okay? But it also makes it a single click to go anywhere. So instead of clicking and then having to click again like you do in slides, you click once and it takes you right to where you want to go. So that's a neat skill, something to know how to do. And there's a slide here on how to do it. Okay, if you have trouble with it or need help, just send me an email and I can help you. I've also got stuff in here about Moat. Okay, I've got the record the slides, which is just that camera that can be right within Google Slides. I've mentioned Screencastify several times. So here's a couple support, notes on how to utilize Screencastify. And then I even just have a couple of slides here on, here's how you create a hyperlink in case you're new to that. Here's how you insert a video into slides, or here's how you take a photo in Google Slides. If you're not familiar, you can go insert image, go right on down to camera, and then I could take a picture right in there. So that's where I was able to like hold up my picture of my math problem, so those are kind of some really powerful skills for you to have, but also for you to think about teaching to your kids, because then they're able to create in this environment as well. Okay, so you guys, I have a couple other things in here that you can read through if you want to. I would love for you right now to just kind of do a final reflection. It's an I used to think, but now I think, if you want to type something in the chat. And then while you do that, let me just make sure that you know that at the end of the slides, there is a link to a form for you to share some feedback about this session. So giving us feedback is a great way for us to get better. We'd love for you to share your thoughts. Also, August 23rd is when the next, the last two of these, well, the last two for a while anyway, are. So you'll be able to go in and register if you'd like to here as well, if you'd like to join us for building assessments with Google Workspace or student reflection and digital portfolios with Google Workspace, which is August 23rd, okay? So, and yes, you can absolutely have the link to the slides right now. I will throw that into the chat for you. All right, that way you've got them, tons and tons of options. And I am going to turn to Gail for the question that Jill just asked about attendance certificates. Gail, can you speak to that since you're still here? Okay, so unfortunately, we're not able to do attendance certificates for these sessions, but what you do get is a huge slideshow, hopefully, of tons and tons of ideas, things that you can take into your classroom, and or if you support teachers, into your teachers' classrooms in order to, hopefully create some experiences for students that are really powerful and provide supports for them. So, so thank you so much for the chats that are coming in right now, you guys. I appreciate it. I enjoyed this hour together. If you have any questions, my email is on the slides, avra@EdTechTeacher. Reach out to me at any time, and I'm happy to share ideas or help clarify something if there was something that was confusing for you today. Okay, so thank you. We're going to get the video processed and then we'll get it sent out. All right. Thanks, Gail, for supporting me in the chat and typing in my email address. That's awesome. All right, you guys have a great day. Go in and relax and enjoy your summer. Okay. Hopefully we'll see you in August.